Hello and welcome back to another episode of Rebound with Resilience, a podcast dedicated to resilience, mindset, and mental wellness. And today, my goodness, I'm so excited. I'm joined by Melodee. She is a social entrepreneur with infectious enthusiasm. All right, she's extremely passionate. She runs Singapore's first pet social enterprise that promotes pet responsibility and adoption. All right. And one thing you must know about her is that she doesn't mince her words. She's a straight talker. So if you want to get slapped, you want the truth, today is the right podcast for you. All right. So yeah, Melodee, hi. How are you?
Hi. Thanks, Kevin, for having me on board. I'm great. This period is very challenging for all of us, but it's still great. I mean, it's still good.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, definitely. I mean, I've seen you adapt. Because Melodee runs a events company, and with COVID, I think it was quite. Initially it was quite
Yes,
affected, but she
yes,
adapted.
yes.
To an online platform, to this thing called Project Adopt Live, where she got celebrities, hosts to come and, showcase the dogs that up for adoption, and a lot of
Yeah,
them actually got, yeah, a lot of
adopted.
positive response, right?
Yeah. So like you say, I mean, because of COVID-19 and the circuit breaker and everything, events are definitely out of the window at this point of time,
Mm,
and I mean, you see a lot of companies struggling because then like
right.
event companies, companies that usually work at ad hoc basis that strive on crowd become obsolete. So
Mm,
one good thing is that for us when we started out, we don't have assets. We don't. I mean, we have assets, but we don't have like a monthly um thing that requires
sure.
us to have payment.
Right.
So that's a great thing. So in that sense, we don't really struggle too much. We understand that okay, we have 12 events that were confirmed for 2020, but because of the circuit breaker,
Wow.
everything got cancelled.
My goodness.
It's still fine. Yeah, we did not lay all our eggs in one basket, so that's still
Okay.
alright. But we do see that a lot of our animal welfare groups they are struggling.
Sure.
So we did had this, me and Dominic, we had this plan to do live streaming for quite some time. We wanted to
Mm,
bring it to a digital platform. Incidentally, I was invited into this arts and media support group on Facebook.
okay.
It's for anyone in that profession. And I sort of like just shared this idea that we wanted to
Mm,
do a live streaming thing.
yeah.
Um, and it's for charity. We
Sure.
won't be able to pay you, but if anyone's interested, please let me know and then we can see what we can do with our different skill sets. Because I've always believed that we can do more, especially with our skills. So when I posted in there, I wasn't expecting much,
Mm,
but it was amazing to actually see a couple of hours later we have over 50 people that
wow.
messaged in, and
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
want
I saw the
yeah
response. Right. There are celebrities that want to do it as well, and you
yeah
spread more awareness for the company. Because of your heart.
correct.
Because of your heart, right, Melody? Your heart is so overflowing with love and graciousness that people just sense your
I
passion. And they want to
uh
help you. So I mean, wow, that's wonderful. We'll talk more about that later
yeah
on
yeah
for
yeah
sure. I want to give you airtime for that. But I just want to introduce you properly also because people see you as a very refined, respected figure, especially in this community. A lot of people know who you are. When you say Melody, they know because you are connecting people and you are raising awareness for a good cause. So people know you, but I think not many or less people will probably know your story or where you
mm,
actually, the struggles you had to go through, the discrimination maybe that you faced growing up, right? And how that
yeah
actually led to your passion and your resilience today. So that is
yeah
part of what we want to explore, like, really, also
yeah
before we lead up to your social enterprise and the work
yeah
that you do.
definitely.
Yeah. So I would like to ask you, right? How were you always this passionate about pets, about pet responsibility? How were you like as a student? Were you really the entrepreneurial kind of tendency? Were you selling stuff when you were in primary school? How were you like? Yeah.
How was I like when I was younger? I would say that this what I am today was not how I was when I was younger.
Mm,
My mom told me that I was actually a quiet girl. I
I
wasn't
see.
very noisy. Like I was noisy at home, but
Okay.
outside I was very well behaved. I didn't speak to strangers, and it was a harder for me to open up to people, I think.
Mm,
Um, and what happened when I was in school is Yeah, I was actually quite timid, I would say, and I was very scared of things. I was
Mm,
very scared of new things, especially when it comes to
okay,
new friends, new teachers, new things to learn. I was very apprehensive about stuff like that.
I see.
Yeah, and I wasn't very aware of my feelings. I didn't realize that I was feeling scared. I would say that when I was young, I was very ignorant and very naive. So a lot of the feelings that I felt, I didn't even realize I was feeling it until I grew older. Yeah.
Mm,
So when I was in school, I was very different.
sure.
Yeah.
So that self-awareness, like you said, right, probably wasn't as matured as you are
No.
now, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
okay, and how did that self-awareness form? Because I know that, you probably faced a little bit, I mean, you shared with me the last time, right? You faced a bit of discrimination just because you didn't maybe do well academically. Could you share
Yeah.
more about that? Yeah.
Yeah. So what happened was that when I was young and I was going through life, I sort of like just went with the flow. I
Yeah.
didn't realize certain feelings or certain impacts that came together with people passing off comments or making remarks about me
Mm,
specifically. All of these things when I was at that age and those comments were being made, it registered that it was a memory, but it didn't register in terms of how I reacted towards it. I didn't realize like the feelings behind all this.
mm,
So when I grew older, I knew that when I was in school already, especially in kindergarten, I was already not doing well. I knew that that was something that at least I knew. I wasn't a good student. I know that because my teachers in kindergarten repeatedly told me so,
mm,
and it's very obvious that you can see the distinct difference between the teachers treating you as well as to the other students. So
mm,
I would say that I'm a late bloomer.
mm,
uh, and as I grew up I know that my teachers made some comments about me specifically, say that
mm,
Melodee, she doesn't do well in school, I don't think she have a good future. So you hear that, but you don't
yeah.
understand the impact.
Right.
Because at when you're in kindergarten, when you're 4 years old, which child will understand the impact of that sentence?
Mm,
Like we are too young to know. So I heard it, but it didn't register. But it was a memory that I remember. And then when I grew up to primary school, and then I grew older, I had this one particular teacher when I was in primary three. I really, really, really hated her in school. She was my
okay.
form teacher and my Chinese teacher.
Okay.
So I did not realize that I couldn't see the whiteboard.
Okay.
So when I was in class, I couldn't see the whiteboard, and that's probably why I didn't manage to study or understand things so well.
Okay.
Um, I did very badly for school.
Mm,
Throughout the entire process, my parents start to realize that, hey, okay, something wrong with her education. And then they start talking to me, and then that's when they realize that I have a problem with my
mm,
sight. And that's where
okay.
I start wearing specs. I
Oh,
got the spec, I got my
okay.
own glasses and everything. And I had this teacher that I think because I already fall behind quite a fair bit. In primary school, there I don't know whether everyone did this, but I remember my whole school did. Your teachers will give you like a badge, and this
Okay.
badge will say like I am kind,
Oh,
or
yes.
yeah,
Those
or I am
labels
helpful.
and
Yeah, yeah,
badges.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I
I've
think they had good
never,
intentions, but it
yeah,
probably
but
turned out a different way. Yeah,
I've never received one of them.
I see.
because
That's ironic.
because like everyone received it except for me, and my form teacher told me, say that, oh, you won't receive it until you do your file, until you pass a test. So like I was like, okay, I really wanted the badge. Every single one of my friends had it. I wanted it. So I was like, okay, I did my filing, I studied, I passed my test, and then after I gave everything to my form
Mm,
teacher, and then when I asked for it, she was like, you don't deserve one.
mm.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
that
that
must have hurt. Yeah.
yeah, that really hit home when I was like primary three. And although I felt sad, but I didn't realize how upset I was until I grew older, because I started to realize that
Mm,
that is discrimination. And how can an educator treat a student this way? So as I
yeah.
grew older, it's when I start to be a little bit more aware of the
Yeah.
comments that were being made. Um,
Okay.
So these two were like the memorable ones.
Main ones.
I think the third thing that really hit home to me was okay, you know, people help out with Meet the People. You heard of Meet the People session?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So GRCs and CDCs, they have this kind of stuff whereby the MPs will help
Yeah.
hold once a day to help residents. So my family was helping out since I was in kindergarten. So I grew up with these people that the volunteers down there. I grew up with them. They watched me grow up.
Okay.
And I remember this lady who is, I think she still is part of the kindergarten structure, probably a teacher still, I'm not sure. And she was berating her daughter in front of everybody in the room, saying that, oh, you know, how can you like not study? How can you do badly for this, etc. And she was just scolding her daughter, who was I think about 4 or 5 years younger than
Yeah.
me. And during that period where she was scolding her, she said this one very, very prominent sentence that oh, if you don't study well, you're going to go to ITE. And if you go to ITE, you got no future, you know? And I remember there was this other lady who said, yeah, ITE got no future one. And then after that, right after that, it was silent in the entire room for about, it was the longest 10 seconds of my life.
Okay.
Because I think that was when everyone realized that I was sitting at the end of the table in my ITE uniform.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that must have been tough. It's not.
Yeah.
You're in your uniform as well. You know, it's not like.
Yeah. It's not like I was there in like, if you didn't know and you fake ignorance, that's bad lah. But I was in my uniform, that's worse.
Sure. It might have been if we
Yeah.
didn't slip, like, it might have been that perhaps for some reason it just came out because it's subconsciously. If I were to give her the benefit of the doubt, but that said, right, I think this example that you shared also illustrates the power of labels in society. That we kind
Yes.
of think that IT, we know, like it's the end. You know, that's the thing that people say, and that
Yeah.
that label, and when people take on certain labels, right, they internalize it and it affects the way they behave. It affects
Definitely.
their actions as
Yes.
well. Labels are one thing
Definitely.
that we have to be extremely
Really get
careful
rid
about.
of. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, and how was that? I mean, for you, you know, after that incident, how did you overcome it, or rather, how was it like after that?
I was angry, really, really angry. I wasn't. I believe internally I was hurt, but I was focusing more on the anger part
Mm,
because I felt like these people watch me grow up. How could you label me that way? Because I'm
mm,
like, you are volunteering, you are doing charitable work. You would
mm,
think that people in the charitable line would have more compassion, empathy,
mm.
acceptance, you know. So it was very surprising to me. I was more angry at the fact. And as I was complaining my mom and my dad, I was saying that, you know, how can these people exist in a world of doing charitable work? How can these people
Right.
exist in education world? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
And educators should be believing that everyone have their special skills, and an educator is supposed to bring that skill to life and help
I
them in
fully
that
agree.
direction. Yeah, rather than putting someone down simply because they don't meet the requirements that you set, that doesn't make sense. And then
Mm,
uh after that, the fact that you all watch me grow up, I see you guys as auntie, my uncles, you know, the people that I grew up with, and to hear that from them, that was very upsetting. And,
okay.
and you know, I would say that in some sense it taught me not to really have a very big pride, because it shoots you down. And every Monday we still go, you know, even with
Mm,
that remark, I still went there. I still call them when I see them, because my mom has
sure.
always taught me respect. Just respect
Yeah.
the person, call them auntie, uncle. So
Sure.
even though they didn't respect me that way, I still do respect them by calling them. um but what I told myself as I grew older was that I'm going to make sure that if I can, if and I meet anyone else, I'm going to make sure that no one else feel the way that I felt. Because yeah, I'm from IT, but that doesn't determine my future. It doesn't. To me, I feel that where you come from doesn't matter. It's what you make of yourself.
Mm,
So uh I told myself that, okay, so once I've accumulated this amount of experiences, work experiences,
yeah.
uh, my end goal when I grow older will probably be a part-time lecturer, or full-time one, but
Sure.
just to be a part of the education system, so that if there is any other educators who reacts this way, there is something that can be done.
Sure.
And no student should ever be in the position that I was, to be told by the educators that you won't have a bright future, or that you are a bad student. Yeah.
I think you'll make an excellent lecturer. More than excellent, in fact, you'll be one that transforms. There's transactional and a transformational leader or teacher. I think you'll definitely be a transformational teacher. I'm
Let's
looking
just
forward
hope
to
that I
the
have
day.
the patience for that.
No, but in fact, you already are one, right? I mean, the work that you do and the interactions, you are teaching people, you are inspiring people to be more compassionate, more empathetic towards pets, and by extension towards people as well. So I
Yeah.
think it's just so nice that you have come to where you are today. But of course, before that, right, in between, there were still some challenges that you had to go through. I'm
Yeah.
aware of that. After that, you did well enough to get into. You told me about the poly admissions as well. You want to share a bit about that? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I won't name the names of the
Yeah.
poly. So
Sure.
okay, I did well in IT. I would say that I did pretty well. I was around the top of, not the top of my whole cohort, but I was the top few. And my lecturers were very, very receptive of me. I even had one lecturer that took me on to do freelance. So whenever he had jobs, he will pass it out to me,
Mm.
and he gave me a lot of exposure and a lot of guidance. So after I graduated from IT, I did a relatively good result. I had a 3.4, and if I were to include in the CCA, I had a 3.5. So that actually entitles me to go into quite a lot of polys. A lot of polys were open. One particular poly, when I went for the open house, I spoke to the student. I was asking the student, hey, can you share with me what's the aggregate point for an IT student to come to a poly?
Okay.
So the student led me to a lecturer, which just so happened this lecturer was the head of the design school. And when I was asking her, she looked at me. I remember her very clearly looking at me, not my face, but looking at what I was wearing, which I was wearing a IT uniform, by the way. And she was like, what's your aggregate point? And I was like, it's actually 3.4, but if you include CCA 3.5. I remember her taking a while to think, and then after she looked at me, and she told me say it was very high. I was like, yeah, I understand it was a high aggregate point, but what's the point? And she looked back at me with a kind of a unhappy, frowning look, and she was like, what's your point? And when I told her it's 3.5 again, and she's, it's actually higher. It's 3.5 and above, but we don't really want IT students.
She said
And then
that.
she walked off. Yeah.
She said that. Are you serious?
Yeah. She said that, and then yeah.
That's shocking.
Yeah. So I was really astounded, because I was like, wow, that come from a poly head of design school lecturer that told you that, oh, we don't really want IT student, and she walked away. So I felt very shocked at the way that she reacted. I felt very, honestly, this may come off weird, but I felt very vulnerable at that point of time. I felt very I was stripped of everything. I just felt like embarrassed and vulnerable, and just I was shocked, and it really broke me down, honestly, because that was the first school that I wanted to go to.
Okay.
And then after that, I went back home. I cried a little bit to my parents, and my mom was like, okay, we are going back to that school the next day. We are going back for the second open house. And then she went with me. She wanted to hear the words come out from her mouth. So we went back there with my mom. And I think, I can't rightly recall whether my brother was there, but my mom was with me. And then after that, we found the same person, and we asked this lecturer again the same exact question, and she looked at me, and she said, it's 3.5 and above, very high one to come in. And then she walked away. So you can tell that she still stuck by what she said, that it wasn't a slip of her tongue. She was serious that it's very high and that it's 3.5 and above, and she walked away. So for someone, and obviously my mom was like, you
Taken
know,
aback.
yeah, and
Mm.
she was very upset at the discrimination. So my mom wanted to do something about it, and I told my mom, like, you know what, I'm just not going to apply for this school, just going to apply for somewhere else.
Right.
Because what's the point of going to a school that doesn't want me, right?
Yeah,
Especially
exactly,
the
right?
head,
You need to
right?
appreciate your value and then just
Yeah.
maybe move on.
So
Mm.
like because of that, I have this very strong distaste for this particular poly.
Mm.
Until today, I still don't have a good impression of them.
Mm.
Sadly, I mean, I try not to stereotype. I try not to
Mm.
label like how they labeled me.
Sure.
But it still didn't help with me. Because you see, how do I explain? You already see the evidence that the people, if a lecturer
Yeah,
can
yeah.
behave this way in that particular school, can you imagine if
Mm.
other IT students go to that school, how they would feel?
Yeah.
Because the head feels that way, it will bring that type of
Duplication.
mentality.
Mm.
Yeah. So, but you know, the next poly that I went to, for that one, that poly was like completely a complete big difference from this first poly.
Okay.
So the second poly that I went for the open house, I asked the student the same question. She led me to this lecturer who wasn't the head of design school, but he was the one that was head of the administration into the design school.
Yep.
So I told him, he asked me what's my aggregate point. I told him it's 3.4 after CCA 3.5. And then he was like, oh, you definitely come into the school. Actually, right, the more y'all apply, the more we want y'all. And I
Sure.
was like,
That's a
wow, this
complete
is,
different, right? It's polar
yeah,
opposite.
yeah. So I was like, really? My first impression is like, really? It's like, yeah, because you already know the basics. And for y'all to work hard to get to this point to come into the school, we definitely want y'all. Why wouldn't we?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's a breath of fresh air, you know, to be
Sure.
accepted, to feel appreciated. And he spent time talking to me, going through with me the process of application, going through the process of the type of curriculums we'll be going through,
Okay.
etc. And he even brought me around to see the portfolios. So
Mm.
it's a vast difference from one poly to the other poly.
Right.
So yeah, I
And
it
and
sorry,
that's
you
the
go ahead.
and that's the way it is, right? Like,
Yeah,
technically it may not be representative of the whole poly, but the reality is that to you, right, that's your representation.
yeah, because that is
And
what you are
that's
doing.
what you
Yeah,
and so therefore, you have formed the impression from there, and naturally you would be more inclined to go to the second one.
yeah. So,
Okay.
but I would say that that helped me a lot to actually realize, like, in a sense, it did push me to do better, but in a sense, it did affect my self confidence a lot,
Okay.
because you start to realize that not everyone, that some Singaporeans, or rather some people, judge you based on your educational
Yeah.
level.
Yeah, it is like
Yeah,
it is the way it is. Mm.
yeah, yeah.
Right. So you mentioned that your self-esteem was affected slightly, right? But in poly, you still did well, right? I mean, you carried on. But I know that
Yeah,
also during poly, you want to share a little bit about your poly life. How were you like? I know you went to do a lot of work attachments. You train your skills from there. But at the same time, you also met with a tragedy, or rather, till today, the emotional lows of your life there. Yeah.
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 Okay, so when I was in poly, I mean, I started off great. I had made quite a lot of new friends, and
Mm.
when I actually shared that I was from IT, honestly, the students didn't react like how adults react. They were like,
Yep.
"Oh, okay, that's cool." So, like, what do you learn in ITE?
Yeah.
You know, it is very different.
Mm.
And throughout school, I was doing well initially. I would think I was doing well.
Okay.
My lecturers, especially, some of them I've grown very close with them. Some of them knew that I was doing freelance, and they were very open with me, going to them for advice, for reviews on my works before I submit it to my clients. So a lot of them were very helpful.
Mm.
But when it hit uh, the ending of year one, year two, and the beginning of year two, my family went through a financial crisis.
Okay.
The financial crisis was pretty bad because we had mountain loads of debts. My
Mm.
mom used to work and used to bring home a very good sum.
Okay.
Um, but because of a car accident, she had to stop working. And the sad thing about this sort of situation is that when you get into an accident and you need to go for hospital checks, and you need to go for weekly checkups, physiotherapy and whatnot. You don't get a claim from insurance straight away.
Okay.
Usually the case closes once you finish out your medical reviews and everything. So when that happens, one should wonder where the money comes from to pay for all these medical bills. So that was part of the load of our financial crisis.
Okay.
And during this period, we decided to rent out our home, and then moved in with one of my relatives. My relative at that point of time said she was okay with the dogs. I mean, I had 3 Jack Russells, so she said it was okay. And once we did the signing of renting out our house, my relative last minute changed her mind and said that she wasn't okay with the dogs.
Okay.
We can't back out the deal anymore for rental of the house because we already signed it. So we actually put our 3 Jack Russells to stay with a friend for a short while.
Okay.
What we didn't know was that our friend's house, our friend's place, was not very clean. So actually, my dogs got sick from there, and they contracted viruses. So my first dog, my oldest dog, we had to put her down because she was relatively old. She wasn't feeling well. She had cancer plus her eye had problems, and if we were to do something about it, she had to go through 3 surgeries. And at such an old age, our vet told us that it is not recommended. So we had to put her down, and we realized our second and third dog wasn't doing any better. And at that point of time, I was overseas for schoolwork. I actually borrowed money from my brother-in-law to go for the school excursion. And when I came back, I found out that my brother actually rented another house just to bring my dogs over there to stay. So the rent that we collect from renting our house, the money that we collect from renting our house, is used to rent another place. Yeah, so it obviously didn't help with the financial crisis that we were in. And when I came back, my dogs were sick. My family, when it comes to money, you really can argue every day with your family about the money because of stress and everything. So I would say that my whole family struggled a lot because we were unhappy, we were arguing, we were emotional, pent up and everything. And watching our dog suffer wasn't a very easy streak. My second, third dog really went through a tough time. But I would say that one amazing thing that happened throughout all this is that when we posted the situation that we were going through at home, and that our dogs were hospitalized, they had to stay in a vet, and that we were having trouble paying the bills. The bills was coming up to 6,000 already. And one thing that really surprised me and made me realize certain things is that when I posted this up on Facebook, a lot of strangers actually came in contact with me. And I had this one particular stranger, until today I'm still friends with her. She contacted me saying that she understands what I'm going through. She did not call the vet because she see the photos. She already understand the problems that we're facing, and she donated a very, very large sum to us. And she told us that, don't even worry about it. And from there you start to realize that there are nice people in the world. Come on, a stranger coming up to you telling you that he's okay. Don't worry about anything. You don't even need to show me proof. I'll transfer you the money. Just let me know what's your account number. So at that point of time, PayNow didn't exist. So she transferred me the account from bank to bank, and she didn't. She wasn't the only one, but her words really made me feel better, because it made me feel like if a stranger can come up to you and tell you that, hey, it's okay, don't need to worry about anything, and then she transferred without even asking for anything in return, that was very touching. But so throughout my tough situation, there were small little dots of sunlight that helped motivate me to still go on.
Can I just share one thing, right? Before sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to share because I really felt something. It's I think I realized two things also when you mentioned you're going through the struggles, right? One thing is that sometimes people are not are very afraid to seek help for whatever
Yeah.
reason, because of ego, because of certain reasons they feel that maybe no one will help them, and they're not willing to seek help. But I think the process of, like you mentioned, right, just seeking help is one component of resilience as well, that you allow yourself to be supported. And the second component is that, like, there are people out there that are nice, and
Yeah.
there are kind of like angels, where they just give without expectation, lah. And
Yeah,
when you
yeah,
meet
they
those
are.
people, it inspires you to be like pay it
A
forward.
better person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also go through your struggle, and come out stronger from it. So I think thanks for sharing that experiences with us.
Yeah, just to like top up on what you just said, right? Like seek the seeking help part. I actually did not realize that was difficult for some people.
Mm,
I think that's where the fact that I was being talked down throughout my entire life. I
mm,
always didn't feel I probably at that point of time didn't understand what pride was, because I was
mm,
always being talked down.
mm.
And you tend to uh be in a state whereby what more can you lose?
Right,
Just yeah.
right.
So
Okay.
for me, I see people again. I may not be able to understand this very well, but I don't understand so much of the difficulty of putting yourself out there, because
Mm,
again, I was being already torn apart since I was young. So to me, it was something that I I mean, it was really built in me already. So, but I do, as I grew older, then I understand that asking for help can be difficult, especially if you have pride, or if you are afraid of looking vulnerable, or people finding out your weakness. I
yeah.
totally get that as I grew older. But at the end of the day, I would say that for someone to actually ask for help, it takes a lot of bravery.
Mm,
And and you will be surprised at the amount of people that actually come forward to help you.
okay. It's a
Yeah.
great lesson that listeners can pick up as well. Regardless of whether
Yeah.
they're students or people that look up to you listening to this. Yeah. So great. So I think from there you slowly but surely overcome this as well. Even
Yeah.
after that really tough period financially, as well as with your pets whom you love so much, and to see them go through that suffering must been very difficult for you.
Yeah,
Um,
it was. But I had this question phrased to
mm,
me once, that oh, if you can go back in time, would you have done things different so your dogs would not suffer?
mm,
Someone actually asked me a question, and
yeah.
I had a really really difficult time saying no.
Mhm,
A lot of people would say that I made a mistake, I want to change things, I don't want my loved ones to suffer. But
mm,
the reason why I have came to this point where I've accepted it is because I realize, in order for you to grow, and in order for other people to probably do better in their life, is for the way the things it is now.
yeah.
Like, if had I not
Fully.
gone through that, had my dogs not suffered, had my family not go through that scenario, maybe my family wouldn't have been as close as we are now.
Yeah.
Maybe there wouldn't have been the pets that I have helped today may not have been gotten the help.
Sure.
Yeah. So all these kind of things come into play. And yeah, I would say that sometimes, whatever, a lot of people tend to regret about their past. I think that's something that we need to understand. You shouldn't regret. You should be focused on the good things that come out from the mistakes that you have made.
Okay. Yeah, I love that. I love that piece of advice, because we really can't change the past, right?
Yeah.
Life sometimes can be understood backwards, but it's meant to be lived forward.
Yes.
And there's no point in regretting, because there's really nothing you can do to change it. So it's really to make the most of what has happened. And
Correct.
that's what
Correct.
you did. That's what you did to a very large degree, and which makes a very nice transition into the final part of the podcast, right? Which is on your passion and the resilience and the love that you give to people. So, yeah, share with us your story. How did you go from that into volunteering with Hope for Animals, I believe, and then eventually starting Buck a Tree, which is your
Mm.
social enterprise?
So how we came into it is I was struggling with the grief. So earlier on, just to recount back a little bit, when I was in school,
Mm.
uh, a lot of my friends couldn't understand why I became so reserved,
Mhm.
why I wasn't going out, and why I didn't want to talk about it, and why I was being closed off. Some of the times is you tend to go through this passage, and not everybody will be so understanding. The one good thing that I can say is that I had a I was lucky enough to have a very supportive and understanding boyfriend.
Mm.
So he was very understanding, and he was trying to be there as often as he can for me. So although I lost quite a lot of my friends and struggled and everything, I had some sort of strong base, and strangers did come forward, like I earlier shared. So throughout this entire process, after my dogs passed away, after things got a little bit better, my whole family got a bit better. I struggled with living with guilt, because I felt that had I been a better pet owner, things wouldn't have been this way. So
Mm.
I honestly, I didn't know that I didn't have a plan. I
Yeah.
just dive into it. I just decided, like, okay, you know what, I'm just gonna help out pets. I'm going to surround myself with animals. So I started went to this adoption drive, and I was helping out there. And
Mm.
I remember talking to these few people, and someone actually spoke about uh, the troubles shelters face.
Okay.
And I thought, like, you know what, I'm just going to start a group called Hope for Animals. And this Hope for Animals is going to be in memory of my dogs, and it's gonna be something to make sure that people whoever it is who might have been in the position that I was, never feel like they are alone. Because I did felt alone before I did post it online, so I didn't want anyone else to feel that way, because I really know how it felt like.
Mm.
So Hope for Animals was created for that, and it was supposed to be it is a kind of in memory of my dogs, in honor of their deaths. And it's supposed to show ignorant owners like how I was before, that there's still time for you to learn,
Yeah.
and to build a community so that they don't feel like they are alone,
Okay.
because they would not be alone. They can, I
Yes.
mean, if we can build a community where people don't feel
Yeah.
alone.
Why not, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And when you show this type of compassion, you are friendly, you are accepting of people, right? I believe that will actually help with even our depression rate.
Yeah.
Honestly, our
Yeah.
depression rate in Singapore is quite high.
Sure.
Yeah. So building communities, bringing the people together, and animals is one great way to do about it, because when you show compassion towards animals, naturally you yourself will be a
Mm.
bit more compassionate towards
Yeah.
others as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you wrote a post as well. I remember reading it that pets also have to be present and grateful.
Yeah.
When you are with them, you learn presence. And I
Yeah.
agree with that. When I'm playing my dog, right? She's all I focus on in that present moment.
It's
Yeah.
important too, because, like, everyone right now is always on their phone. Like when
Yeah.
they're dinner with their family, they're on their phone. When they're
Mm.
in bed, they're on their phone. The only time that they are not on the phone is when they're doing work.
Mm.
So I feel that kind of takes you away from the real world.
Yeah.
And as much as digital is it does help us at points of our lives, we also need to be present in the now. We need to be in the now. Like, for example, my focus is on you. Like, I'm fully focused. I'm 100% listening to everything you say.
Mm.
It makes someone feel like you appreciate that time. It makes someone feel worth it. You never know, a simple action like that can actually mean a lot for someone who really needs it.
Okay. Wow. I learned so much from you every time I speak to you.
Ah.
Great. Right. Nice. Nice. A good reminder for me. I tend to sometimes also get distracted. Like right now, it's important. Hosting a podcast has also helped me to focus on what the person is saying instead of thinking about asking the next question, which is not easy sometimes. But I think along the way you learn it. Okay, nice.
Yeah,
But I
I
do have to ask the next question. so, which is let me just yeah. So I think you started, and Hope for Animals was expanded, right? And it became more than just volunteering. You
um
started to raise money as
yeah,
well for shelters.
yeah,
You saw a need, and you did a lot of fundraising.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I was helping out, I realized that what the society needs is not not another pet
Yeah.
shelter. What we need is to help these pet shelters, because
Yes.
these pet shelters are already doing an amazing job. They are,
Mm.
honestly, I have I mean, I like to challenge myself, but rehoming and rehab and rescuing, these three
Mm.
things are one of the hardest things I have ever done.
Okay.
And I realized that I don't have the emotional capacity for it,
Mm.
because it requires a lot of love and a lot of strength of someone to do it. And that is something that I know for a fact is not within my capabilities. But when I was when I first started and I helped out, I realized that a lot of these pet shelters, because it takes a lot out of them to do all this, that
Yeah.
they are struggling to actually find funds, struggling to get
Mm.
awareness. So I start
Yeah.
to realize that, okay, that is the one missing aspect of pet shelters. They need help in terms of awareness, they need help in terms of fundraisers, they need money, they need help. So I was like, okay, let's rework Hope for Animals, like someone was there for me in my time of need.
Yeah.
Let's take this time to use the community to be there for the pet shelters. So that's when we started to realize, okay, let's work with shelters in a way whereby we become sort of like their marketing partner. We
Mm.
become sort of like their marketing, their advertising partner. So we come up with different ways. Like we work together with, we reach out to companies. We tell companies like, hey, the animal industry is growing bigger as the day pass. Everyone's starting to be more everyone's starting to get more pets, everyone's
Yeah.
starting to be a bit more pet friendly.
Yes.
And like, why not tap onto this target audience? So we tell the companies like, this is a good target audience for you because it's a good marketing platform. You are
Yeah.
reaching out to new target audience. At the same time, you get to do your CSR, your corporate social responsibility. So
Yeah.
why not work together and then we just do this big campaign? And that's where we come in. We become the liaising partner. And because
Yeah.
my team of committees, right, they are from different industries. We have someone in the marketing industry, we have someone
Yeah.
who's account manager, we have events, we have someone from the media, and then
Mm.
there's like a whole bunch of us. And for me, I'm in the graphic design. So I was
Yeah.
like, why not let's just pull all our skills in together and create something
Yeah.
grand. So instead of doing the usual like, oh, we sell this for fundraising, or
Mm.
the marathon runs, let's do something more so that even people who want to donate, they feel like they themselves enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So these are the stuff we come up with fundraising ideas, and we are always very open to come up with creative things that have never been done before. So
Yeah.
one of the things that was very creative is that we tie in together with a company that has nothing to do with pets.
Mm.
This particular company is a IPL company. Basically, is to laser off hair and whatnot.
Okay.
So what we did was that we did a campaign where we we worked together with one particular shelter.
Okay.
We brought pets down to Raffles City during lunch
Sure.
hour, and then that's where we start promoting. We start telling people like, oh, like adoption, you should do adoption. Why? Because
Mm.
adoption actually saves lives, and not only does it benefit the shelter, it benefits you,
Mm.
because you yourself feel better and you get challenged to do all this stuff, etc. And then after that we promote about, do you know that shelters actually need funding, etc. So
Mm.
what the company work with us is that every share and every like, they will donate $1 to the shelter.
Mm.
So within that just one day, we have raised $7,000 for the shelter.
Wow.
Yeah, so it is
Wow.
creative
Mm.
campaigns like this, that is very
Yeah.
heartwarming. Yeah, and
Definitely.
I think we are not we are not bound by limitations.
Sure.
Yeah.
I love that phrase you mentioned, not bound by limitations, because that kind of embodies your attitude to life also. When I first met you, and how you give to people, you just link people up, you're gracious, you give without expectation of return because of the abundance that mentality that you have. And
Yeah.
of course you don't have time to go into all the events they have run, right? But
Yeah, yeah.
some of them are so creative. Like the ones that you sent me, Kumar was hosting it, right?
Oh
And
yes,
then you had a
yes.
couple of not really advertisements, more like awareness posters about
Yeah, yeah.
responsible pet owners.
Yes,
I thought
yes.
that was very creative as well. You know,
I think it's important not to like expect anything in return.
yeah,
Because I mean, at the end of the day, if someone do good for you, would
mm,
you want the person to have something
yeah,
that they expect from you? No, right? Yeah.
mm,
So I think giving is better than receiving sometimes. It makes you feel better, just somehow or other, it
Sure.
just makes you feel better.
For sure. You receive that
You
love.
receive that feeling lah. I
Yeah,
mean, like
feeling.
if you want to say something, right?
Yeah. I agree. I fully agree. Okay, nice. So of course. So that was you, you know. So after you graduated, you started. You were working as well, right? So you were working, and then you were also running
Yeah,
it on the side. How do you manage,
yeah,
and what drives you? What gives you the resilience, despite? Because I'm sure that when you started out, you had to pick up a lot of new skill sets. You know, things like
yeah.
liaising, negotiating, getting people together, a lot of headaches that they deal with. But how do
I
you have that resilience to learn that skill set?
think I was too focused to actually question myself on that.
Sure.
But full time, and I was helping out with the show with Hope for Animals, and then I started biotry as a sideline while I was still freelancing as well. So
Mm,
I think my my okay, so I'm going to address the first question, which is how I balance it, right?
yeah.
So how I balanced it was, uh, I made sure that every time. So this brings back something that we spoke earlier on, which is be in the now.
Mm,
So I make sure that when it comes to dinner time with my family and people that I love, I make sure that my focus is on them and not on my phone.
okay.
This is something that nowadays we can get lost in,
Mm,
and it was very important for me. So my sister actually taught me this. She was always telling me, she was always having this look on her face whenever any of us are on our phone, and you know, your elder sister to have that look on her face tells you a lot also.
sure.
So my sister also challenged and taught me quite a fair bit about being in the now.
Okay.
And she told me, like, you know, if you're always on your phone, your attention is not on the family, and how would you like it if someone does the same thing to you? So it made me realize that it is very important to be in the now. It's very important to give the attention to someone, and when you pay attention to someone, the person will feel like they are not alone. So
Yeah.
to me, that is a balance that I have to make sure that if I have meetings or I have a gathering with my family and friends, I make time for it.
Yeah.
And to me, family is something that I always have to make time for.
Mm,
So my partner is another one that I have to make time for, and my friends, obviously I make time, but I have to prioritize which is more important. And when it comes to friends, right, friends who understand that you have all this in plans, they will either adapt or they will understand. Like I have these two amazing friends from my poly. They
yeah.
are really amazing people. They were not in my class, but we were in the same like class for the first half of the year, and
Mm,
then after we branch into our own individual courses. So they are very understanding that I would be busy, and that they understand that even right now I don't always have the time to meet up with them. So what they actually did was that they messaged me like, hey Mel, you got your event this weekend, right? Hey, we come down and help you lah.
mm,
And then that's where you spend time together. So your friends also adjust themselves just to
just be
spend time
glad.
with
Yeah.
you.
Mm,
Yeah. So
okay.
although that they are doing charity, but their main goal is to actually spend time with you. And
Sure.
and these are the small little things that we have to take into account. So even like for example, right, again coming back to a balance, I can get very tired sometimes because
Mm,
I have this, and then
yeah.
I still got my
Yeah.
family, I got my partner, I got so much things. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, right, I would say that it's very rewarding. I go to bed happier, I go to sleep happier, and I wake up better. So as tiring as it is, and as much it requires discipline, because say for example, you have made all these plans, and then after that you have maybe these 2 hours that you thought you can rest,
Yeah.
but you realize that you've been neglecting this one good friend of
Mm,
yours. So you slot your that partner, your that friend into these 2 hours,
yeah.
and then when it's coming that time, you'll be like, oh shit. And then, and then it so it requires a certain level of discipline to just go through it,
Yeah.
even though you are tired.
Okay.
But if you want to do so many things, you have to balance
Sure.
your time out. Yeah. And to answer your other question, which is what drives me, is the fact that I I think mainly because I can never forget the stuff that I've been through. So at the end of the day, when the stuff that I've been through, it once in a while I reflect, and when I reflect is what drives me. I think once in
Mm,
a while we need to have that reflection, so
sure.
that it makes us remember why we are doing this, and we don't get lost in it, and it keeps us humble as well.
Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love your sharing. I think I think when your why is big enough, right, and you remember why you're doing what you're doing, those
Yeah.
challenges is something you realize you have to go through.
Yes.
And when you do go through them and you do your work, right, you leave at the end of the day you just feel very satisfied and you wake up, like you
Yeah.
said, feeling good about yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So do you have any tips for people that perhaps are chasing their passion, or they have something that they're passionate about, they want to do or raise awareness, and they not necessarily be in the pet
Yeah. Yeah.
industry, but anything at all. What advice will you give to them?
Just go for it. I mean, honestly, as simple as this phrase is, sometimes it just needs to be said at the right time by the right person.
Mm,
I had this phrase by someone telling me, like my brother, when I was thinking about whether I should start okay, so I went in that because I started this big campaign,
mm,
and I was a bit concerned because to me it sounds like it's big and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I'm
mm,
like afraid. So
right.
at one point my brother was like, just go big or go home lah.
Mm,
And something so simple but being said at the right time and the
yeah.
way that it's being said can really be effective. So I was like, yeah, go big, go big, go, just do lah, just do. And then it just throughout the entire way, I was just fully focused. And I one thing that I think is very important for anyone who wants to do something is to make sure, apart from the fact that you just focus on it, um, I think if you have good friends, just reach out to them. I had amazing friends. I reached out to one friend, and then after I reached on to another and another, and then suddenly these people from different parts of my life just got together just to come up with this one campaign. And you know it is amazing that you can bring different cliques of people into life. I had my I had my ex colleague, I have my ex client, I had my secondary school friend, I had my cousin.
Mm,
And so it's so random, but
yeah.
somehow or rather it works. You'll
Cool.
be surprised at the type of relationship. So I would say that, like, if you have an idea you want to do it, just go for it. Honestly, just go for it. What have you got to lose?
Mm,
You apart from time, and you don't really even lose the time, because when you do it, you always learn something. Anything you do, anything you screw up, any mistake, any step you take, right, you learn something.
okay.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And the right people will also come into your life because you have a vision, right? And then together you will
Yeah.
accomplish that vision. That's
Don't
that's
be afraid
lovely.
of rejection. Yeah, just don't be afraid of rejection. Honestly, if I was afraid of I've gotten so many doors
Yeah.
slammed in my face, to the extent that I've become like, oh, slam more. Because why?
Mm,
Getting rejected is great because it teaches you how to be more disciplined. It teaches you how
mm,
to accept rejection. When you accept rejection, you are not afraid of someone telling you no.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And speaking of rejection, I think the last part, the one of last two questions I'd like to ask you, right, is that COVID was a huge rejection for a lot of industries, and including yours, where the whole events had to change and adapt, right? How did you deal with that? Initially, when it first hit, right, was there any form of like, oh no, my this or fear? Did any fear come in? If so, how do you overcome it? Or
Oh,
if not, in general, yeah, just how do you respond to it?
huh. Okay, so when the COVID-19 hits, initially, the first 2 weeks, nobody in Singapore really took it very, think that it would be so serious. So me and my partner, we didn't think anything of it until the time where we start wearing masks and we see the
Cases.
numbers skyrocketing, and then we realized that, okay, something's really wrong. And we had 12 events confirmed for this year. The minute COVID-19 hits and the circuit breaker hits, everything got cancelled. And we start to realize, okay, everything has cancelled, and we won't have income for this year from part three at all.
Mm,
So throughout this process, while I would say that we were mourning the death of all our plans and
planned events.
projects,
Yeah.
we realized that something else was happening that requires more of our attention. So we can choose to dwell on the fact that we lost everything and be upset and be to be angry at the situation that we are facing. But what happened is that we realized that when we reach out to our shelters and then we reach out to our vendors, we realized that they're really struggling. And then we realized that, okay, now it's time to take that pin of the idea that we wanted to do of the live stream down from the board. So,
Mm.
in our life, we always have a lot of ideas. So me and Dom have this, me and my partner have this idea whereby we will always pin the idea up.
Okay.
So we realized that it's time to take this idea down. And when we took this idea down, it's like, okay, obviously we are struggling. And I was worried that I'm gonna maybe get a pay cut. I was worried that my partner was worried about his job and everything. So while all this chaos was amidst, we thought that, okay, we really need something to bring us down. We really need to do something to at least feel okay. So we decided to we saw an opportunity to help multiple things just by doing one thing. So like earlier on I mentioned, the pets were struggling, our pet vendors were struggling, we were worried about our jobs. COVID-19 is another crazy thing. And then after, the last thing that we saw was that a lot of people in my industry, which is the arts and media industry, were struggling. A lot of them lost their jobs, a lot of projects got cancelled, and a lot of people lost a sense of existence. Like they are living, but they lose a sense of meaning, because they suddenly can't
I
do
can
anything.
relate to that. Like I had to stop training for a while, and suddenly the thing that used to fulfill me and drive me is no longer there. At least for that period.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
So like we realized that is a problem, and then we're like, okay, we believe that if every one of us can focus on doing something, we will feel like our life has meaning, because what we are doing impacts something or somebody. So we took up the idea of doing the live streaming, and we reached out to the arts and media group, and we told them, say that we have this idea, does anyone want to join? So again, I can't reach out to every single one person that I see needs help, but what I can do is I provide an opportunity for somebody who recognizes that they need help to actually come in. So from there we actually formed a group of mixture of different arts and media industry who were affected. We had people that lost their jobs. We have photographers that all of their projects were cancelled. We have even dancers and theatre actors and producers. Obviously, with the COVID-19, how is any of this gonna continue? And with all this in mind, I told them that I understand what they're going through. Although it may be different from what I'm going through, but we are all here for each other.
Sure.
And we decided to we wanted to focus all our time and energy on this. And we met up once, thankfully, before the circuit breaker. Thankfully, it was just before the circuit breaker announced that we met up. And then the rest joined us on Zoom. So we met up and then we talked about it. And, till today, right? And that was like, just to let you know, like somewhere in March, that we reached out, and then we formed the group, and then we planned the first live stream about 1.5 weeks after getting to know everybody. So it's like, strangers coming together, and we were not just like, seriously, within 1.5 weeks, it took us 1.5 weeks to produce the first ever episode.
Sure.
And by strangers nonetheless. So it tells you, right, that efficiency is not determined by how well you know the person. Efficiency is determined by your determination and your discipline. So I will say that I was very lucky to meet all these volunteers, because if it weren't for them, we wouldn't have pushed it out. And if it weren't for them, I think some of us may have gone through a whirlwind spiral of depression. We won't know, obviously. But I will say that after getting to know some of them, I took the time to actually talk to one of them, each and every one of them, certain days, certain time. And you kind of realize that some of them really needed it, because if not, they will be struggling with their self-worth. And they will be struggling with a sense of belonging. So it was very heartwarming to actually know that what we have done does make an impact. And we realized that some of them actually ended up becoming we foresee that they are going to be very long running friends.
Sure.
Like they really get along well with one another. So
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
I
think
think
having community is very important.
it is. And just to summarize whatever you shared, right? It's because of this period that you had to take down an idea, you had to innovate, and in solving other people's problems, right? Because you looked out and said, hey, whose problems can we solve in this period? Is it the shelter? Whether is it artists? And you brought everyone together to solve a common problem, right? Which
Yeah.
is that number one, the loss of identity a little bit in not having a job,
Yeah.
and also in the community, in having that support for one another. Yeah, so and of course that the response to Project Adopt Life was very good and it was very positive. You can find that on Bucketree's Facebook
Hope for
profile as
Animals.
well.
Hope for Animals
Hope
page.
Animals, okay,
Yeah.
Hope Animals page. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I have to wind down already because we have gone over an hour. But I'll need to ask you where can we find so if you, especially when listening to this, right? You are have an interest to support or you have an interest in adopting a pet or you're already existing pet owner wanting to know how to be more responsible for your pets, right? Where can we find you, Melody?
Okay, so they can find us on Hope for Animals. I mean, just typing Hope for Animals on Instagram or Facebook, they should be able to find us. But if they want to connect to me directly, they can. I mean, I think my name is kind of different already, so just searching Melodee Tan is quite easily
Okay.
searchable. I should
Oh,
be in a few.
can
So
I'll put a link
yeah,
up.
honestly, I'm very open to meeting new people because you'll be surprised at the type of people you meet, the type of friendships you bond. So I'm always very open to meeting up, and I'm very open to even just discussing ideas. I think that is what the community should be about.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much, Melody. I had a wonderful time talking to you. I had to end off with one question that I usually ask my guests as well, which is, what does resilience mean to you?
Hmm. I've never really thought about it. I think because I spend my time just doing it without thinking. So, uh, I would say the import how what resilience would probably mean right now to me is to always reflect on what made you start or what made you or what drives your emotions crazy and then
Mm,
work from there. Because I think the only way for you to persevere through things, the only way for you to be disciplined and to I think discipline and perseverance are under resilience also.
yeah.
I would say that the only way for you to continue and to stay resilient would be to remember what drives you, remember that feeling, remember that experience, and to reflect on that so that you have that refresh of feelings to push through anything.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Melody. With that, we will end this podcast for today. Once again, please do support Melody's causes. And of course, we know that we thank her so much because she's contributing to a more empathetic, compassionate society through pets and through connecting communities. And
Thank you,
yes,
Kevin.
yes, welcome, Melody. Yes, we'll see you guys next time. Do tune in to the next episode. Bye bye.
See you.